Hey, there we are. It worked. We're live on the interwebs. Hey, let's do this podcast thing. And here we go. There you go. Thanks for finding us on a Thursday evening and welcome to Caching in the Northwest. This is the only podcast from the birthplace of geocaching in the Great Pacific Northwest. Each week, we're going to talk about caches and cachers from here and around the globe. So while you're busy cataloging all your new geocoins, we'll be caching in the Northwest.
And that means it's time to bring in our golden monkey. Some say he's so tall he uses the Space Needle to sign his logs. And others say he's discovered the source of the Fraser River. All we know is he's called Land Monkey.
Well, hello. I was completely shocked. Who is this person introducing me? I almost don't recognize him.
You know, I can't say all is right with the world, but all is right with Thursday night today. It's good to be back.
It's good to have you back, buddy. Got the dream team back together. And in fact, we've expanded the dream team for tonight. I'd like to introduce the president of the Washington State Geocaching Association and friend of the podcast, MC3Cats. Chris, welcome to the show.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for inviting me on.
And of course, as I always say, my favorite geocaching rapper name.
He's my favorite MC.
Don't even get me going on that.
Well, okay then. And while we're also segueing away from things we don't want to talk about, a quick reminder that we appreciate the support of our patrons who help to keep this podcast coming back each and every week. If you want to know more about supporting the show, click that Patreon link on the cachingandw.com website. I think it's over here. But it really
over there, but yeah, somewhere. Just look around. You'll find it.
You will find it and click on it and it'll have all this great information. It's like the Brady Bunch. We're all kind of looking around. All right. This is how this podcast rolls tonight, folks. I'm sorry it's not going to get any better. This is what you got. All right.
Which one of us is Cindy?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to know. Hey, but what we do want to know is we want to know about the great logs that you've written or perhaps you've read. We want to hear about it because great logs simply make geocaching better. Each and every week, we talk about the glow or the geocaching log of the week. If you have one, send it in to feedback@cachingandw.com. Better yet, we want to hear it in your voice because you hear it in our voices every week. So call into 253-693-TFTC or use that voicemail tool right there on the website and show us how you glow.
And once again, we have a great glow, but it wasn't submitted with either of the audio tools you mentioned. So you're stuck with me reading it. And this week's glow is from Tunnel of Fun. That's GC1EWZ9, logged by Brylang. I think I've heard of him. And it reads, an Australian, a German, a Canadian, and 2 Americans arrived above ground zero in the fog.
Doesn't that sound like the start of a joke?
Yeah. We could just let people maybe write a joke based on that opening line and send it in.
There you go.
Yeah. And the best one will win. I don't know.
My undying appreciation.
There you go. I'll read it on the podcast or something. Anyway, the Aussie volunteered as tribute and headed down to do the honors. After a while, he emerged triumphant. Thanks for the cash and the smiley. And footnote, it says, love listening to Caching in the Northwest and wishing I was up there caching again. Usually I'm listening to it on iTunes while working. Sorry I missed y'all at the gig. I know there were tons of podcasters there, and somehow I managed to miss them all. One day, maybe, we can move back to Pacific NW. Until then, Southern Grits.
And I think that's the caching name, Southern Grits, and not the food item.
I believe so, yes.
Though they do eat a lot of grits in the South.
So I've heard.
This log was sponsored by Southern Grits.
Pick up your Southern Grits today.
How long does it take to make a grit?
Do you measure the grits like with sandpaper?
Hmm.
Now, is that instant grits or old-fashioned grits?
Wow, see?
There's a difference?
You got to tell if the car has positive traction or not.
Well, the 69... No, we won't go there.
There's a
That's
long movie reference there.
That's a different podcast altogether now, isn't it?
That's a podcast of a different color.
That's right.
Hey, if you didn't see us at GeoCoin Fest, there's something new in the
what you got
caching in the Northwest world. I'm holding an innocent-looking black box.
There's nothing innocent looking about that black
But
box.
there's nothing innocent once you open it up.
If you left that black box unattended in an airport, it wouldn't be innocent at all. So,
well, there's that.
You know.
For those of you, not watching, this black box just closed on my thumb. For those of you not watching, we have our very own Bounce puzzle box that he made for the Caching in the Northwest crew. So next time you see us at an event, ask for the puzzle box, and you're going to be able to do some Caching in the Northwest trivia.
And prior to the event, if you're planning on coming to an event where you think the puzzle box might be, send a message to Caching in the Northwest and say, please remember to bring spare batteries.
Always bring spare batteries. I'm looking and thinking, you know, I bet I could run this off a USB. I could find a way to. I'm going to look into making some changes because, you know, I like to tinker.
I'll wire a 220 input for you.
Ooh, it'll go much faster that way. If you get it wrong,
it'll do more than bite your thumb. I'll tell you that.
That's awesome. So yes, we have a new puzzle box. Thank you, Bounce. That thing.
Bounce. Thank you.
And
thank you so much.
One of the coolest things that I loved about that box is that because of that box, all three hosts were at GeoCoin Fest.
Yes, that's true. Because once you start the box up and you start reading, you realize it's hosted by Wits End. So Wits End,
Wits End doesn't seem too impressed by that.
I'm just trying to think. I don't remember actually being there. So.
Oh yeah, you were there.
Okay.
Anyway,
you were there in spirit.
That I was.
In electronic form.
Okay.
Once you complete the 25 question challenge and get at least 20 right, you're able to log the trackable. There were a couple of people that were able to do that over at GeoCoin Fest before the batteries died. Let's see. Aminako says, saw this at GeoCoin Fest Seattle 2018. I think my cousin has successfully talked me into watching your show.
Oh, well, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, if it takes a family member to twist an arm, we're okay with that.
We're good with that. Yeah.
We are not above that at all.
Three Hams also was able to complete it. He says, I played the game for a group of people. I was really proud to get the first 18 questions correct. Then things fell apart. In the end, I needed 23 questions to get my 20 correct. I'm so embarrassed.
That's pretty good. Some of those questions are hard. So
yes, they are. I've missed one.
Gasp.
I was surprised. My wife went through and who doesn't watch the show and got many of them right.
There you go.
So
maybe she listens when you talk about it.
I must be talking in my sleep.
Well, she's listening. So there you go. You should start being a little more careful about what you talk about. All right.
Well, thank you to Bounce for doing that. That's awesome.
Yes. Thank
you so much.
So puzzle boxes, GeoCoin Fest and all that, those are all awesome. But tonight, we're here to chat about WhereIGo caches with our guest MC3Cats, right?
Well, yes, of course.
I'm glad to have you here. It's great to have you on the podcast. For those listeners that don't know you or haven't met you or don't know much about you, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I've been caching almost 10 years. In fact, in February, I will have my 10-year anniversary. I'm in the Seattle area. in the Renton area, to be more specific. And I'm currently the WSGA president. I was actually a chapter rep for a while prior to this current assignment. And let's see. I guess that's about it.
Okay. Well, happy nearly cash-iversary.
Thank you.
You're gonna have to throw in we'll have to throw an event for you, won't we?
I'm kind of thinking about that.
Yeah, in a city that never owns.
Right.
Rent on.
Yes. I'm not. I'm not buying. I'm just renting.
Exactly. I say I own my house here in Tacoma, but if I don't pay my property taxes, I lose my house. So I don't really own it. But that's another podcast.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's the financial one.
Yes, that one's not as much fun.
No.
Now, many of our listeners, MC3Cats, may have had the chance to meet you in person last week at GeoCoin Fest 2018. You have to tell us what exactly you were doing there. I mean, detail. We want minute by minute. Nah, that's fine.
Well, the WSGA actually had its store, the entire store. Every item we have in our merchandise stock, we had at that Coin Fest. So we were selling everything. Not only our 2018 coin that we just got, but lots of other ape gear and such that we still have. So that's what I was doing, selling WSGA gear.
And, you know, we were right next to you in the tables, and it seemed like your table was always busy. So good job.
We had quite a few Germans stopping by and spending lots of money. So I left that place with a big smile on my face.
You know, there seemed to be a lot of Germans there, period. Germans do like to travel for their events.
Yeah, I figure we probably made somewhere around maybe $400 out of that.
Wow. So I've got, I've got more stories about the Germans, but let's save that for the after show. So I'll try and remember. Thank you.
There it is.
I'll try and remember to hashtag FATAS some stories about Germans and GeoCoin Fest 2018 into the after show. In the meantime, MC3Cats, Chris,
Yes.
We're going to really dig into the topic of WhereIGo caches tonight. We've been told you're something of an expert in this category, so we're going to ask you some incredibly hard questions and try and embarrass you. That's the whole point of bringing guests on the show. No, just kidding around with you. But if you could start by maybe explaining for those who aren't maybe really familiar with what a WhereIGo cache is, because there's some areas where there's hardly any and some areas where there's huge densities. What is it? How is it different from a multi or a mystery or puzzle cache?
Well, the interesting about WhereIGos is they are kind of a combination of those two types that you just mentioned. The difference with them, of course, is they require a small little software program called a cartridge that you have to load in a player to play. So that's the extra added piece of it. And really, they're really story files. I mean, that's what I've heard them described as. So cartridges are really story files that essentially make the experience come alive. So I kind of look at them as a multi-cache that is interactive via the WhereIGo app that you would most people nowadays play it on their phones. With a WhereIGo app. Back in the old days, we didn't have smartphones. Back in the beginning of WhereIGos, you had to have a Garmin GPS unit or a Pocket PC. Those were the only choices to play it, so it was very limited. It's much more available to the average cacher now.
Very cool. I like the description of story files. That makes a lot of sense to me. When I think of cartridge, I think you have to go before you put it in the machine. But
and only you could fix your own cartridge.
Oh yeah. Your friend couldn't do it. Yours, you had to. Yeah. Oh yeah. So They're really cool, these WhereIGo caches and story files and all. What prompted you? What motivated you to start putting them out?
Well, when I started in 2009, that was really at the very beginning of WhereIGo's. WhereIGo started in January of 2008, and I started about a year later. And at the time, there was very few around here, and I think I remember taking a trip down to visit relatives in California, and I saw a WhereIGo down there in the LA area that I wanted to try. And I purchased an organ, a Garmin organ, which was one of the units that had the player on them. And I had a miserable experience. Organs were known for crashing frequently in the middle of a WhereIGo. And in the one that I was doing, it was a murder mystery. So the theme of the WhereIGo was pretty cool. And it was in a sports park. So there was a lot of walking around and you were interacting with virtual characters. So it was really a cool cartridge and a cool WhereIGo. The problem is the Oregon just kept crashing. It was annoying. And ultimately I couldn't find the cache. And
yeah, Trexer contributes in the chat there. WhereIGo isn't a WhereIGo without at least one app crash.
Well, this was back when, you had you had to play a Garmin, use a Garmin GPS, and it was just horrible. And so as the years went on, I really loved the idea of just the whole WhereIGo theme and what it is. And I kept looking and searching for builder programs because I really wanted to make my own, and I wanted to do a better job than what was out there at the time. And it took forever before a much more user-friendly program came out, and that's when I decided, you know what, WhereIGo's got a bad rap, I think part because of Garmin. Yeah. And now more people can play it, and the phone apps and the players in the phone apps themselves are 100 times better than what Garmin's player was. So that's the story.
So that might explain why you have about 15 of these things now. If it was just the Oregon and the app crashing all the time, you might have quit at one, right? But,
exactly.
But you've got quite a few, like well over a dozen, about 15 or so. Don't they get repetitive after a while, though? What can you do to a WhereIGo to make them unique and creative and stand on their own?
Well, that's an excellent question. When I decide to do a WhereIGo, I usually have to be inspired. Something has got to just hit me. And if you've noticed with my WhereIGos, they tend to be really kind of two types. Ones generally are like a tour style and I've got one I put out in Kent, which is my more recent one. It's a history tour of the city of Kent, which has got a lot of old 1800s buildings that are still around, and the Historical Society did a fantastic job of identifying these buildings. So, and that happens to be where I work, in that same area. So I'd be out on a walk and go, hey, there's all these plaques. And I thought, hey, there's an idea for a WhereIGo. So it could be the location that kind of just, hits me, and I'm like, hey, that's a great idea. Let's do that. One of the other ones I did, which was really more of a virtual storyline. It came out when the Pokemon Go craze just was on fire. And I thought, hey, let's do a WhereIGo based on a hide and seek game with Pikachu. So I have it set up in an area where there's a lot of mountain bike trails and stuff not too far from my place. And I go, this would be a great place to just map out a whole course where you're chasing Pikachu and you're running into his buddies as you go along the trail, and they're giving you hints as to where to turn next and that kind of thing. So that one just was, the times Pokemon Go was out, and I'm like, I want to put that into a WhereIGo. So it's just, when the ideas come to me, I just kind of go, hey, I think that would be something new and different. And, a WhereIGo cache is born.
Cool. Now, so we talked a little bit about how it was in the past, and I have to agree the Oregons were terrible. I did a Where I Go around the Alamo, and I want to say it was like 15 stops. And, you know, after I did the first 3 or 4 times, I decided I need to save this after each stop. And then I was able to make it around. But how does somebody go and find a Where I Go today? Do they need any special equipment or software?
So really, you just need you need an app on your phone, and really, let's face it, everybody's using their phones for this stuff now. Oregon does, or the Garmin folks don't even put the players in their units anymore. They've stopped doing that quite a while ago. So really, it's downloading the app on your phone. Both the Android and the iPhone apps have search functions. If you know what the GC number is, you can search for it very easily. I think you can also do a location-based search as well. So you really got to do that first. HQ has changed some of their requirements on the WhereIGo cache pages now, where you have to embed the link to the WhereIGo website, so that a person even using the app, if they're using the geocaching app on their phone, they should be able to go in there and be able to download that cartridge right to your player. So they've made it much easier now to access the whole WhereIGo cartridges now, and download them and be able to go and play them. So that's really all you need. You don't need any special gear. Heck, you may already have the app on your phone right now.
It's conceivable that we might.
Oh, I do. Yeah, on iOS, I use WhereIGo.
Okay.
On Android, I believe there's a WhereIGo.
Correct.
And also Geo Live will do WhereIGos.
That's cool.
Built in. So yeah.
So in the chat, GSM X2 says, "What player do you use, Chris?"
So I have an iPhone, so I use the WhereIGo app, and that runs. I've had very, very few problems on the iPhone, and I don't have an Android phone. I don't know how the WhereIGo plays, but in theory, they really should play similar. I mean, yeah, they're different, platforms, of course,
Sure.
but it's still using the Lua code. So, and really a Pocket PC, which was one of the old original players. I mean, that's pretty much what these are. These are Pocket PCs. I mean,
pretty much, yeah.
That's what they are. So it really should run on either platform without any trouble. It's where the problems comes into the building of the cartridge, and that's another. I think that's another story there.
Good job. So that leads right into next question that we were asking, and from the chat, GSMX2 says, "What program do you use to create the cartridge?" And along those lines, I was going to ask you, somebody hears about these and says, "I want to create one of those." How do you start the planning process to create a WhereIGo?
Well, first, for me personally, the idea needs to come to me, or if I'm at a location. So I tend to move more towards locations that just prompt me to go and do one. So just like any other cache, of course, you're going to want to find a good spot. With WhereIGos, not only do I need to find a good spot for the actual cache itself, but you also got to look at the area that you're going to have people map through to do the cartridge. So it's a lot more work that goes into these, and that may be why you don't see as many of them. Is there's the cartridge building, but then there's also the going out, snagging the GPS coordinates for all the stops in the cartridge you're going to have. So there's a lot of upfront work, but the rewards are there because you can look at a map. How many WhereIGos are there around? I mean, I've got quite a few, but if you zoom out and look at the country or look at North America, it's not a lot out there. So that's what I would tell people is look for an area that just is screaming for one. Art tours, history tours, those are excellent examples of good WhereIGo caches. The other type, like I said, the story-based ones, That really, you can do those probably anywhere. You just need to find a good open space to do it. If you're going to do a Pikachu type of thing like I did, you need an open area for that kind of thing, because you're not interacting with things out in reality. It's strictly all embedded in the cartridge. It's virtual reality, and you can do these cartridges either way.
Okay. So somebody picked a spot. They had this great creative idea, or they stole one from you. How did they actually go about making the WhereIGo cartridge?
Okay, so the cartridge, there's a couple of builder programs out there. There's probably 3 or 4. The one I use, and the one that's probably, let's say, is as much idiot proof as it could possibly be, is a program called WhereIGo Kit that Ranger Fox put out. This one is map based, which is awesome. So obviously you can sit there and drop pins on a map, and those pins will be your boxes where you're going to have your waypoints in the cartridge. That is really the best one that I've seen. The others, you almost have to be a code writer to do them. And that's what I kept running into in the early days of WhereIGo. It's like, I remember I tried the one that HQ had. I mean, that was designed by someone who code writes. It's like, that's not me. So I kept searching and searching, and finally I heard about this WhereIGo Kit program. It's like I said, it's web-based. I think they use Google Maps, and you just search for a location where you want to put it. And it's literally, you just drop pins and you make boxes, and those boxes are where the cachers would step into, and that would trigger the cartridge. It would start asking questions, or you would run into characters and you'd interact with them. That's the best one I've seen out there, and that's the one I use.
I've used the same one. I've done a sort of a history tour style WhereIGo up here, and used the Ranger Fox software, and it was really easy to use. I went out in the field, and I saw there was a comment from Chris of Landshark saying it seems you have to pre-plan to do a WhereIGo cache. And in my experience, you do. You should really sort of walk through the route, think about the way it's going to lay out, and then you can, as you say, you fire up that whereigo.rangerfox.com app. And it was really easy. Put the pins. In fact, you can actually draw the areas that'll activate the WhereIGo cartridge when it's in the zones, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Yeah. So really sweet software. So definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, the old ones were they were tough, because you were literally having to draw the boxes, and it got so difficult.
Absolutely.
And this one, it's just, this is where I want it. Boom, right here.
Yeah.
Easy.
I had another question, but before I get to that, a thought occurred to me as we were discussing this, and you're talking about the applications. One of the types of WhereIGos that I've done a couple of them, and I've quite enjoyed them, and it's the maze, the invisible maze type. And I don't think you can do that with the Ranger Fox software. I think you kind of have to code those yourself, don't you? Or
yes, you really only can do the 2 types on his program, which is basically what he calls the blackout, which is like the story-based, where you're interacting. You go through a zone, you have to interact with that character in the zone, or answer a dialogue or whatever, and then there's the tour style, which is you're going into the zone, and that zone there's a sign or a plaque or a piece of art, and you have to answer a question, kind of like a lab cache. I mean, really, WhereIGos are kind of a combination of lab caches and multi caches, and even to a point, even mystery or unknown caches. It's sort of a little of everything, really. It's just how you design it, how you build it. That's up to you. If you want to make it like a lab, and I've done them like that, you can do that, or you can make it completely story based.
Very cool. So to the question that I had for you originally, Chris, what are some examples of the most interesting or fun WhereIGos that you yourself have found?
Okay, probably one of the. I got a list of a couple here. There's one locally in the Seattle area in Magnuson Park. Mr. Rockchalk put this one out. So this is a Lackey cache, of course. It's called Magnuson Mystery. Let's see, Magnuson's Mystery Case of the Missing Cachers. GC5 Golf Juliet 8 Queen. I know I'm not doing those right. This one, it was really cool because it was the storyline style of WhereIGo. So you're not interacting with any of your surroundings. It's all on the cartridge. So you're looking for these missing cachers. And in Magnuson Park, if you're familiar at all with that, it's in Seattle on the shores of the lake, Lake Washington, and it's a pretty good sized park. So it's a great place to do this type of a WhereIGo because there's so much space. Right. So that was a great one. Another local one is the one in Fremont. There's a Fremont WhereIGo that Rambudo put out. I'm trying to think when he did that. It wasn't too long ago. And it's just called Fremont. So that's GC3 Foxtrot Quebec Delta Quebec, if I'm saying that right. That one was cool just because it's Fremont. Fremont is like a circus every day of the week.
Yeah. It's the center of a known universe.
It's this, yeah, definitely. So just again, location on that one for sure. The other two I have on my list, the USS Arizona WhereIGo in Honolulu, GC4 Kilo Echo Kilo Yo-Yo. I don't know. Just making these up. Someone named Joyful Nomad put this one out. First of all, if you've not been to the USS Memorial or USS Arizona Memorial in Honolulu, you got to go. Yeah. I mean, the history there is just unbelievable. And this person did a fantastic job of doing the WhereIGo on the ground. So you got to go around both inside the museum and then go out to all the outdoor displays of various things. I mean, it was just outstanding. Then there was another one that was on the island of Kauai in Hawaii called Whodunit at Shark Cove. So that one kind of took you around the southern part of Kauai. Just the views, again, the location, the views were just outstanding. So those are my couple of my favorite ones.
Chris, did you have a GC code for that last one?
Oh, sure. Forgot about that. GC4 T as in Toledo 45 Alpha.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
So yeah, if you get a chance to go out to Hawaii, you definitely got to do the Arizona one. Just, I mean, I went there because I was going to take the boat out to the ship itself, and I thought, well, I'm going to go do this while I'm here because the ship doesn't leave for a while, the boat doesn't leave for a while. So I went out and did it. The cache itself wasn't actually on the grounds; it was just down the street. The hide wasn't all that. I mean, it was a NorthWest style hide in Hawaii, so that was kind of odd. But
that's different, yeah.
Unusual pile of sticks.
It was in like a stump, oddly enough. So it was but it was like, a tropical stump. There you
go. oh wow, that makes it so much better.
Absolutely. Those are called pineapple plants.
Right. It was pretty good. But yeah, great. Those are just some fine examples. And that one that was in California would have been great if, I don't even know if it's still there. It's probably gone now. But that murder mystery one where you had to, I'm trying to think, it was a mystery style one where you had to go and you would talk to these people in the park, these virtual people. And I had never did go back down there to try to avenge a bad cartridge, but one of these days.
Nice. So we've talked a little bit about what makes a WhereIGo good. Is there something that people jumping in for the first time should avoid, that doesn't make for a good WhereIGo experience?
Well, I think probably the biggest complaints that I have and that I've seen in general is when you're building the cartridge, do not make the zones where the zones that the players or the cachers step into. If you make them very small, then you have a very narrow target of when that will trigger on your phone. If you have it dialed down to like 2 feet, well, it's not going to trigger in time, or it may not trigger at all. And so people will obviously complain, go, it didn't work, or they just had a bad experience. So that's probably the biggest pet peeve is, especially with the Ranger Fox program, you can set how big or how wide you want that zone to be. I tend to set it around 8 to 10 feet, which is a pretty good size. That will account for any sort of lack of cell coverage if you don't have a full set of bars. Even if you got a couple with an 8 to 10 foot size box that you're going to step into, you should be able to trigger that waypoint or that zone and be able to interact with the cartridge.
All right.
Really good to know.
Yeah, it's really helpful. So you've made all these great WhereIGos, and other people in other places have made other ones. Let's say people wanted to find yours, though. Where do you look for these on the map? How do you find them?
Most of mine are in the central Seattle area. Kent and Renton, I've got quite a few. I would say, go to the map and turn everything off except WhereIGos. And you'll find, and if you're hovering over the Seattle area, you'll find mine. I have one in the town of Leavenworth. And Leavenworth was an interesting area. If you've ever been to Leavenworth, if you haven't, it's a tourist trap of a town of sorts, but it's a pretty awesome place, especially this time of year. It's a Bavarian village on the east slopes of the Cascades, kind of between Monroe and Wenatchee, more closer to Wenatchee than Monroe, but it's on Highway 2. The town is a German Bavarian village. That's what it is.
Yep.
And the town has murals all over the town. The buildings have these gigantic murals on the sides of the buildings. And I remember what was one of the places I wanted to do a WhereIGo first, because you had these murals. It was perfect place for a WhereIGo. And so I ended up mapping it out along the town, and then the cache is actually just outside of town on one of the islands there that you can walk over to in the river there. So that one's a fun one. And just Leavenworth in general, you have a webcam there, and you got quite a few different cache types. So I thought, well, hey, let's put a WhereIGo there, so now someone can get a webcam and get a WhereIGo while they're in Leavenworth.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we've done that one, and it was nice to be able to get multiple cache types. But it's fair to tell people there's a bit of a time investment in that WhereIGo. So you have to plan to do a little bit of walking around in Leavenworth.
That's true. It starts on basically the east side of town, and you have to walk west. But again, you're walking through the town, and it's just a cool place. I mean, there's nothing quite like it. Just the way that the building code is, and everything looks. I mean, it looks like it was pulled out of Bavaria.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Oktoberfest, and they party the whole entire month of October over there.
Oh yeah.
Do they really?
The Oompa bands are in full gear right now.
I'll have to ask Wits End about that in the after show. In the chat, Chris, GSM times 2 wants to know what you think of reverse WhereIGos.
Excellent question.
And I have to say, I've done my first one at Gigastock. That was the first time I'd seen a reverse WhereIGo, and I went ahead and did it there.
Reverse WhereIGos are that. I mean, I like them. I've done one, and almost completed the other one, which is in Land Monkey's neighborhood there. The one that's up in North Vancouver there, which I DNF'd. But essentially what they are is it's a cartridge that this one particular cacher has made. So to get access to that cartridge, that reverse WhereIGo cartridge, you actually have to go find one first, and then you get access codes. You take those codes and you go back and say, hey, I want to do one. And so with this code you get when you find one allows you to have access to the builder program, and then off you go. They're fun. It's another time investment for sure. But it's just a whole nother spin on geocaching. It's a different type of WhereIGo. It's not, you're not necessarily following a particular path. What the little box does, the little reverse WhereIGo box, it basically it tells you how far away you, every time you ping it, it will tell you how far away from the cache you are. It doesn't tell you which direction. It'll just say, okay, you ping it, it says, okay, you're X number of miles away. And you have to, by trial and error, really try to figure out where it is by going one direction or another, and then, you know, start dwindling down as you get closer and closer. The one in Honolulu I did, that one drove me nuts. And it was in a city park, and it was very busy, and it was, you know, right in Waikiki. It was, yeah, that was a challenging one, but they're fun. It's a whole different kind of WhereIGo.
Certainly is. I had a great question and I've lost it. So, just think of something, and that's what I would have said.
Good job. We've got an after show.
3Ham says there's a WhereIGo in Bellingham where one of the zones is too close inside a commercial building. People mention you have to run full speed into the wall to spoof the GPS if it's outside business hours.
It sounds painful.
Yeah.
Interesting. What could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I'm envisioning a glow in the future there. Gave myself a concussion trying to get through a WhereIGo zone.
But
What
so
if you
totally
work in the
worth it.
hospital?
Yeah.
I just thought it was platform 5 3/4.
Right.
Yeah.
Ouch.
IHAM says that GC47 Delta 8 Hotel is a fun story. Proposal in Silverdale, where you go to the florist and the jeweler, etc., to commemorate the hider's wedding proposal.
Yeah, that's right. That's another one I remember doing over there in that Silverdale area. Yeah, that's I don't know who put that one out, but again, it's a great storyline, right? Someone came up with this idea and you know, just mapped it out on a cartridge, and off they went. So really, the best part about WhereIGos is they're incredibly creative. I mean, if you think about it, out of all the geocache types are out there, really WhereIGos are, you know, like the blank canvas. You can be as creative as you want with this, both building the program and then, you know, the cache at the end of it.
Okay, here's a question. This wasn't the one I have, but this is a good one. Have you put out a WhereIGo cartridge and then come back and tweaked it saying, you know what, I wanted to add this and this and this?
Yeah, definitely I have. I haven't done it on every single one of them, but I'll go back. Generally, I think one thing that happened, the very first one I put out is up on top of Cougar Mountain at Anti-Aircraft Peak. And that one is a kind of a history one, because on top of that peak, there used to be a Nike missile base there back in the day. And there are still relics of that old missile base still there in the park. It's now a King County park now. And so I had built it as like basically a multi-cache, and you had various stops. Well, one of the stops was a nice big kiosk that the county eventually came along and decided to remove it. And they didn't bother to tell me that they were doing that. So So a player comes along and says, zone 3 is missing. I'm like, what? So I had to go back and obviously change it because the information was no longer there. And I was a little surprised when I got there. I'm like, wow, this whole thing is gone. But that happens, right? I mean, that could happen on a multicache too, where you have something disappear. So I had to go back and essentially delete or remove that entire zone. And I could have, I suppose, added a new one, but that meant looking for another way to interact with the cartridge. And at the time, there just wasn't much up there. So I just took it out, made it a little bit easier.
One more question from GSM times 2. He says, if there's a possibility now that if AR caches are accepted after the trial period, do you think AR caches may replace WhereIGos?
I don't think so. I know I had this is a good question. I had a candid conversation with Brian Roth at HQ about WhereIGos here, actually just last week, as a matter of fact. Because me personally, I look at just the WhereIGo website itself, where you load the cartridges. It hasn't been touched in, I think, since 2008. So I had a conversation with Brian about what he thinks the history. What is the where's the WhereIGo platform going? I didn't want to see it go away, and I told him, I said, I hope it sticks around because I think more and more people can play them now than they could in the past, and I would sure hate to see HQ just grab the proverbial plug and yank it. And so I asked him point blank, I said, what's the future of WhereIGos? And his response is, it's not going away. We do plan to keep it around. We do plan to make some updates to it and all that. But as with anything else, they've got their hands on a lot of other things right now, especially updating the website and the apps and so on. They've got so much going on over there right now. So it is on the list. Will AR replace it? I doubt it from my conversation with him. If anything, that would be something completely separate. If it even survives and becomes its own entity, which who knows on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, MC3Cats, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate this inside look into WhereIGos.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome to stay with us. We do, well, as you know, we like to do
the after show
after this. Drink your water. Don't spit there. Okay.
I could actually hear that. You can't always hear that when you're watching it live.
We do the after show, which is just a time for us to be able to chat with the live listeners that are watching us. Well, because they're all live, or they wouldn't be listening to us, but that's a different story. But thank you so much. And we want to thank everybody who's listening. And we've hoped you enjoyed this particular episode, but we have more coming. Oh, yes. Yes, Land Monkey has been working hard. Next week, we're talking about hiking in the mountains with Keats 94.
Nice.
And he's a young guy. He'll kill you hiking in the mountains. I'm convinced of it. But, it's more than just hiking in the mountains.
Well, then the next episode after that will be good.
That's right. Performing field first aid with Dr. Alec. We maybe when you download, you want to listen to those together.
Like a box set.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, if you survive those two, then come back on the 25th for episode 274. We're talking about trackable promotions with HQ and Ed Council. That's Katie from HQ. Always great to have guests from HQ on the podcast. And then why a week later, it's November 1st, and you might as well tune into the podcast because guaranteed by then the World Series will be over. And we could talk all about GeoCoin Fest 2018, which apparently I attended and didn't even realize.
You should go ahead and log it.
That's what the Brylang said in the chat, that I could post it to. I will post an attended log now. So I don't know if I'll go that far, but we'll have guests, Chris, Mackie, and JP on that show. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome. And of
Oh,
course,
awesome.
thanks to Landsharks, our corporate Denali level sponsor. Landsharks.ca is the outdoor adventure and geocaching store. Check them out online or visit their store in Victoria, BC. As we always do, we want to thank all of our faithful Denali level supporters. That's Bounce Bounce, Team Squirrel, Limax, and WorldCaching.com. Folks, if you want to know more about supporting this show, click that Patreon link on the cachingandw.com website, and you too will have your name read at the end of every episode, such as Broncos Fan for Life, Sprouter Camp Clan, Tick Magnet, Kev MacD, Subway, Mark Doramore, Dune Buddy, Kid Vegas 19, Geo Nav Pros, Wino, Seattle, Ackerdoc, Billy Robson, G-Nice, Antaeus, Keats 94, Curiosity Girl, Trexer Zero, MC3Cats, and Kindlebarb.
All right. All right. Well, speaking of MC3Cats, Chris Brew, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would you like them to reach out to you on the interwebs?
Well, let's see. There's so many ways, isn't there? Certainly the geocaching, my geocaching account, of course. I do get a lot of contacts that way. Email always works too. MC3Cats@gmail.com. That's real original there for me. I am also on Twitter, and I think that's probably about it.
All right. Cool. Well, hopefully you'll get great comments from that. Land Monkey, how about you?
Land Monkey. So you can find us Twitter, Instagram, Periscope at Land Monkey GC on Facebook. We're Team Land Monkey, and of course on YouTube. Those videos keep coming out every couple of weeks. We've got a new one, so next one's getting queued up, and just search Land Monkey on YouTube and get caught up on season 1 of Land Monkey's Geocaching Adventures.
You
And
could probably search the Rick Steves of geocaching and come up with the same thing.
I'm hoping that's going to start working. Yeah. And our website, of course, landmonkey.blogspot.ca or adventuregeocaching.com.
Ooh, love it. Always an adventure with the Land Monkeys.
There you go. How about you,
Thanks
Witsand?
for that. You could find me on Geocaching's message center with Twitter, Facebook. Just look for Wits End. That's the only CNW host with a Z right in the center. And the other Chris tonight. How about you?
Find me on Twitter or Facebook at Caching NW. Of course, Chris of the Northwest on geocaching.com. You know what's better? Head on over to cachingnw.com/hosts and read our bios and find all the links that we just mentioned.
All right. And to everybody else and to everybody we've already mentioned, we want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this wonderful episode of Caching in the Northwest. Hey, you out there, you can be part of the show. Yes, you. Give us a call, 253-693-TFTC. Leave us a comment. Ask us a question. Email us a WhereIGo completion code anytime, day or night. And of course, you can always email feedback@cachingnw.com. Your support, why it helps to keep quality shows coming. If you like this show, why don't you just trot your little fingers over to the cachingnw.com website and click that Patreon link. You can subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, all those things, and have a great time. This show is produced by Chris Umpenauer and Jay Kennedy and hosted by the threes of us. The show is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, copyright 2018 by Chris Umpenauer. And now hang out with us for a little while for a little thing that we call
The After Show.
The After Show. That thing.
There you go. So, folks, if you're new to Caching in the Northwest, this here podcast, we do,
The After Show.
oddly enough, as the name implies, after the show. We close the main show, and it's just a chance for us to chat with our faithful that come and watch us live each and every week.
The faithful. I like that. So
The
we're not
faithful.
calling them the community anymore. They're the faithful.
They're the faithful.
Very spiritual experience to be part of the chat in Caching in the Northwest.
Now, during the show, we mentioned Leavenworth, and Chris from Landsharks mentions that Woody Goomsba lives in Leavenworth,
Yes, he does.
and he's the coolest.
What are you
So, Wits End, what do you think about Leavenworth?
Well, it's I think it's a big prison in Kansas, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a party town.
Not that one.
Oh, the other one. Well, the MC3Cats told you all about it. It's a little town on Highway 2 on the eastern side of the Cascades. You know, it was a railroad town that, like so many other railroad towns, was doomed to just dwindle, die, and disappear from the map until I don't know who it was, the city founding fathers or the city council or somebody just said, hey, let's theme everything in town to be just like a Bavarian village in southern Germany or Austria. And it worked. It feels, I've never been to Germany in person, but I've had other people that have been tells me that it feels just like you're there. Every building in town by city ordinance must be themed in the Bavarian way, including the McDonald's and the Starbucks.
So is that actually a city ordinance that they?
I believe it is.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's a neat town. I've
It's a lot of
been
fun.
there in a few times in the summertime, not at Oktoberfest time. I think Oktoberfest time it would be pretty intensely crazy around there.
It is. My dance group has performed there. They're performing there again in a couple of weeks this year. The official Oktoberfest region or celebration is in an enclosed area. They have to pay admission for where the fest halls and the bands and stuff are. So while, of course, the town is crowded and all, it's not as bad out in the town as you think. I've gone out and walked around and shopped and gone to restaurants and stuff outside of the official Oktoberfest celebration, and it's still like any other busy holiday weekend or any busy weekend in Leavenworth, but the actual Oktoberfest area is quite more crowded.
Yeah, December is a really crazy time.
It is.
They have the big the tree lighting ceremony, which really it's much more than just lighting a tree. The whole town lights up.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge thing. I want to say they do it right after it's weekends right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And everybody comes to the town. I mean, my wife and I stayed there I can't remember, it was one weekend in December a couple of years ago. It was cold as all heck. It was 8 degrees in the at night.
It does get very cold up there.
It gets cold there, but we happened to be there during a really good cold snap over there, and it just added a whole different dimension to the holidays because it was cold. There wasn't a lot of snow. I don't think there was hardly any snow on the ground, but to watch that tree lighting ceremony, it was just unbelievable to watch the town just light up.
Yeah.
In sections. They just hit a switch, and it's just, and then they have music playing and stuff as well, and there were just hordes of people there.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
But you got to go if you haven't been there.
Yeah. Now, were you there last weekend or the weekend before?
I haven't been there for several months.
Oh, I thought you were just there.
Last weekend I was in Portland.
Portland.
The
Okay.
Whitman Brothers Oktoberfest, and starting tomorrow I'll be at the Oktoberfest NorthWest and Puyallup Fairgrounds for the next 3 days. So come on out, say hey, hey, howdy, hey.
All right. Something else that we had for the after show. I've got a little news bulletin in here about MC3Cats. Apparently, you won something at geocoins.
Oh yes, I forgot about that.
So the contest was rigged, is what I'm reading into this.
Yeah.
Yes, he admits it now.
No, I don't know that it was rigged. No.
Oh, okay. I thought we were going to get breaking news right here on the podcast.
No,
yeah, it was clearly
not
rigged.
I'm just going to make up breaking news right here on the podcast.
Okay.
Well, that just takes the after show to a whole nother level now, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we didn't say it was truthful in the after show.
Well, there you go. There's a disclaimer you can toss, right?
Yeah. The after show is completely made up. It's fake news.
It's fake news, right?
Right. And the
So,
points
yeah.
don't matter.
I got this nifty little thing right here. If you look real
Look at
carefully
that.
there.
For those who are listening, that is a mountain bike geocoin.
There's
And
the back.
not just a mountain bike geocoin, but a special what color finish is it? Black nickel?
Yeah, it's a black nickel.
Black nickel finish. I mean, I thought I heard him say he only made 2 of those.
Well, so here's the interesting thing, though. So when we were at your booth on Sunday, Brian Roth and I are the only 2 people that have this coin.
Mhm.
And we were standing in front of your booth Of course, Brian didn't have his. I'm sure he doesn't
Didn't
carry
have his with
around.
him. No.
He didn't carry his around wherever he goes, I'm sure.
I thought it was his belt buckle.
Well, yeah. You know, it kind of does look like a belt buckle. The more I look at it, I'm like, you know, that's not what it is. So yeah, he was telling the story of how he got the coin, and basically John just came up to him and was showing the coin and gave it to him. So I am very lucky to have it. And the story with this goes, I was in the middle of a transaction at our booth, and I hear on a PA system somewhere, I hear my name being called, and I'm like, what did I win? Did I win something? I don't remember entering anything. And so I'm in the middle of doing this transaction, and someone comes over and they're like, you won something. I'm like, what did I win? And they're like, you won a coin. I'm like, okay, I don't remember entering anything, completely forgetting the fact that on the kickoff event, I bought raffle tickets. That was on, what was that, Wednesday? Before so I completely had forgotten about it. And so I get done with the transaction and I walk over and I run into Chandra, and she hands me the coin. She goes, you won the coin. I'm like, oh, the mountain bike coin, of course. I completely forgot it.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was funny.
Now, what's really special about this coin, if you have a mountain bike coin, it's owned by Mountain Bike. This is the only mountain bike coin he does not own.
Ooh.
So MC3Cats will be the official owner of this mountain bike coin. So that's something special.
Yeah, and you won't be finding it in a cache near you. I can.
But I heard you want to give it away to somebody on the show, right? Is that what I heard?
Oh, I can't imagine I said that.
Oh, it's about the same time you bought the raffle tickets. Oh, if I win that, I'll just give it away. That's what I heard. I wasn't at that event. But that's
well, you know,
I
I was having some chocolate stout at that event, so who knows what I would have said.
I have heard of this substance.
You have you?
Yeah.
It was at the Rogue Brewery in Issaquah. That's where the kickoff was, and I fell into a pint or several of the chocolate stout.
And is that the chocolate hazelnut porter?
I believe that's what it was. Yes.
That was drinking dessert, is what I called that. Yeah.
Oh, well, see, I always had my dessert before dinner. Then I guess.
Yeah, that was awfully good. Yeah. So congratulations, man. That is
thank you.
Awesome. That's exciting for you. One of the things I was going to share, we talked about Germans and GeoCoin Fest. And so anybody who maybe has been under a social media rock and didn't realize it, but there is a group of 30-some Germans touring the Northwest and making their way down to California and Nevada in a tour bus with the geocaching vlogger. And they were all at GeoCoin Fest, and they were coming there the day after they had just visited our hometown up here in Vancouver, BC, and then came down to GeoCoin Fest. So if you were at GeoCoin Fest, you had an opportunity not only to meet some fun, cool Germans, which I did at our booth, but also to meet Joshua, the geocaching vlogger, who was there, which was also pretty cool. So you guys really brought in a lot of celebs. I noticed actually four different vloggers of note at GeoCoin Fest. That was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so what was neat? So my story about the Germans is I was doing a little bit of filming. So I have a new gimbal for my smartphone that I'm using for filming. It gives amazing stability and quality to the shots. I had just finished doing a little bit of filming with it. I had sitting on the table. I was getting ready to talk to some more people about the podcast, and this group of people came up and they start asking me about the gimbal. I'm like, okay, I start talking in a very distinctive accent, and just ended up having this really long conversation about the gimbal, and they're wanted to test it out. And so yeah, it was kind of fun. So it was neat because, you know, you never know what other interests people have when you connect through geocaching. There's probably something else that you can find out that you have in common or of interest. So it was neat. It was a very fun international moment for me.
No, it's only geocaching. That's all you're allowed to talk about.
You were
I don't care what you do in your
other than the
personal life.
podcast.
We're talking about geocaching.
There you go.
It's called caching in the Northwest, right?
Right.
There you go.
Maybe that's why I don't have any real friends.
That's
Uh-oh.
one of the reasons.
Oh, that's one.
Ooh.
Oh. You know, that could that be a whole new show right there you guys could do? I don't know.
Yeah, more
Analyzing
therapy.
analyzing
Yeah.
CNW here. I don't know.
That sounds like therapy. I don't want to go to that. I don't want to find out what's wrong with me.
Oh, and then I'll just get rid of this list I have here.
Okay, thank you.
Ouch.
All right.
Oh, let's see.
Also-
3 Hams put in the chat
Go in there.
that I was going to proudly announce I've just gotten a triple fizzy by logging a challenge cache today. But it turns out I logged the challenge for a DT53, but I needed a DT35.
Oh,
Oh,
hate when that happens.
ouch. That's gonna leave
So.
a mark.
But hey, you know what? Getting a 5 difficulty cache is noteworthy. Good
It
job.
really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I agree. That you just don't do that every day.
Exactly.
Pete.
That's one of the 3 cats.
Yes.
How did you know?
Mr. Pete.
Mr. Pete.
Not Stinky Pete?
Well, he can be.
Yeah,
Be a
That
number.
depends.
Right now, he's annoying Pete.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Chris of the Northwest, I have
Yes.
asks, are there any FTFs this week?
Nope.
No? Okay. Quick question. There we go. Next.
Okay, yes, there was one. Iham called
That's
me
the
up.
end of the story.
Yeah, he called me up and he says, "Are you going for it?" What? There's an FTF, less than a mile from you. Oh, how about that? Well, I don't know if I can get away. And I realized, well, I brought my lunch, so I was going to sit at my desk for lunch. I'll do it. I'll leave now. And I was able to get there and get the FTF. So, yay, FTF.
Yay for you. Super nuts.
There was
There's more to the story.
Yeah, there was $1 prize for FTF, so I owe Iham 50 cents. I just want to put that out there that, so next time I see him, I have to throw a couple of quarters his way.
Okay.
I think he gets an assist on that FTF, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Too bad you can't get like half a point for finding a cache.
Not 3 Hams. Iham called me at work. GeoNav Pros.
GeoNav Pros is listening to the podcast in the hot tub with the wine again.
Oh, nice.
Supernauts, who we had a chance to meet at the event. So it was awesome that you guys came by and we got to meet you. They made a comment that the Caching in the Northwest raffle turnout was pretty amazing. And it was. I was blown away at noon how many people we had around our booth. That was pretty crazy.
It was you guys had a crowd over there easily. I mean, I in fact, I had completely forgot I had a ticket to drop in the bucket, so I had one of my little half pint assistants bust through the crowd to get it in the box. I was like, "Good luck, kid, if you can get in there."
Well, something we learned at Gigastock was that when we're handing out tickets, to hand out both halves, and then at the time it's you're there for the draw, go ahead and tear that second half and drop it in the bucket. That's so much easier. It goes so much quicker. Every number is there, and every number you call, you can go right through it rather than going through 17 to 104 numbers before you get a winner.
Yeah, we moved through it pretty quickly. And shout out to Joshua, geocaching vlogger, if he's listening to this podcast, which of course he is.
He is.
But shout out to him because he was generous enough right at the end of the draw. Once we'd gotten through all the prizes, he threw in one of his trackable tags into the prize bin to be drawn for as well, which was very cool. He didn't need to do that, and it was really nice of him to do that.
Mm-hmm. We had a couple of people asking if we'd raffle off the puppets.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
So
those things are sacred.
Almost, yeah.
So
Uh-oh.
it was kind of neat, the attention the puppets got, because not a lot of people know the history on the puppets, that we did our 100th episode entirely with puppets. And so a lot of people saw the puppets and said, "Oh, that's kind of neat." There's there's puppets for the hosts, and every once in a while someone would ask like, "Oh, what's with the puppets?" And so then I'd share that, and I just get this look. You did an episode of a podcast with puppets.
Yeah, an audio podcast with puppets.
Yeah.
And I told him, yeah, we do every audio podcast with puppets. And we always say Dora Moore was such a good sport.
She was. Yeah. Brylang in the chat does say the 100th episode was not entirely puppets because Dora Moore it was like the Muppet Show, and Dora Moore was our very special guest star.
Woohoo!
God, it almost sounded like Kermit there for a minute.
That's what I was going for.
And,
you almost had it.
And she had no idea coming on that we were going to do puppets.
It was kind of mean, but it was funny.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, Trexer, go watch. You got to watch our 100th episode on YouTube.
Yeah, you got to do it. All right. So what do you think? We got.
I think we have done more than enough.
All
So,
right.
folks, thank you so much for joining us. And until next week, get out and get caching in the Northwest.